Family demands I forgive them, forgiveness requires remorse, and they show none, so I owe them nothing here. My aunt's wine glass clicked hard against the coaster when she set it down, like punctuation. So, she said, drawing the word out, are you going to forgive us or not? The living room felt too warm, the kind of heat that makes your skin itch under your clothes. Someone had lit a cinnamon candle that mixed with the smell of roast chicken and old carpet. My mom stood by the kitchen doorway twisting a dish towel in her hands, eyes flicking between faces like she was watching a storm form. My dad sat on the edge of his recliner, elbows on his knees, jaw tight. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I'd driven 2 hours for this talk, and the second my aunt said forgive, I knew exactly how it was going to go. They were going to demand a clean ending without doing the messy part first. I swallowed, and it felt like swallowing grit. Forgive what? I asked, because my brain was still trying to give them an exit ramp. My aunt laughed, sharp and incredulous. Oh my God, Samantha. Don't do that, she said. You know what? The past. Everything. We're family. My cousin Jenna shifted on the couch and muttered, can we not make this dramatic, like my boundaries were a performance? I stared at the little framed photo on the side table, my brother and I at the beach when we were kids, sunburned and smiling, and felt something in my chest tighten. I'm not making it dramatic, I said, keeping my voice low, because if I got loud they'd call me unstable. I'm asking why you want forgiveness when none of you have ever apologized. It was a Saturday in late October when this happened, and I only came because my mom left me a voicemail that sounded like she'd been crying. She said, please, Sam. Just come. We can't keep living like this. She didn't say, I'm sorry. She didn't say, we were wrong. She said we, like the distance between us was a shared choice instead of the consequence of what they did. I'm 29 now. I live in a small apartment above a bakery that starts smelling like butter at 5 in the morning. I built a life that's quieter than my childhood house ever was. I pay my own bills. I have friends who don't treat my pain like an inconvenience. I've been in therapy long enough to recognize when my body is bracing before my mind catches up. I can spot manipulation the way you can spot a certain kind of weather, pressure building, air thickening, everyone acting like you're the problem for noticing. My family hates that version of me. The version who asks for specifics. The version who doesn't accept we did our best as a substitute for accountability. When they say I'm holding on to the past, they mean I remember what actually happened. When I was 19, my Uncle Ray, my dad's younger brother, did something that made my skin crawl even typing it. It wasn't a single dramatic incident. It was a pattern of boundary crossing that built slowly, like water rising in a room. Comments about my body when I wore shorts. Jokes about me dating older men. Touches that lingered too long on my shoulder or lower back, always when nobody was looking directly. The way he'd find reasons to be near me in the kitchen at family parties, blocking me in like it was accidental. I told myself for months I was imagining it, because the alternative meant my family wasn't safe. And in my family, safety was always tied to silence. You didn't cause problems. You didn't ruin gatherings. You kept the peace. The day I finally said something was at my cousin's graduation party. Everyone was crowded into my aunt's house, music too loud, people laughing. I'd gone to the bathroom and when I came out, Uncle Ray was in the hallway, like he'd been waiting. He said, there she is, with this grin that made my stomach turn. He stepped closer and put his hand on my waist like it belonged there. I froze. I remember the wallpaper pattern behind him, little blue flowers, and the feeling of my throat closing up. I shoved his hand away, hard, and he laughed like I'd misunderstood a joke. Don't be like that, he said. You're so sensitive. I walked straight into the kitchen where my mom was filling a tray with chips, and I said, I need to leave. My mom looked at me, confused. Why? She asked. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't even hold my keys steady. I leaned in and whispered, Ray is being creepy. He touched me. My mom's face changed, not into concern, not into anger on my behalf. Into panic. The kind of panic that comes when someone threatens the family story. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the laundry room like we were hiding from a fire. "Samantha," she hissed, "don't say things like that." "I'm not saying things," I whispered back. "He did it." She pressed her fingers to her forehead. "Are you sure you didn't misread it?" she asked. "You know Ray. He's affectionate. He's like that." I stared at her and felt something crack. "Mom," I said, voice shaking. I shoved his hand off my body. "That's not affectionate." She started crying. Not because I was scared. Because the party might be ruined. And when my dad found out, it got worse. He pulled me outside to the back patio, away from the noise, and the first thing he said wasn't, "Are you okay?" It was, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I remember the cold air hitting my arms, the sound of laughter through the screen door, and my dad's face, red and furious. "You want to accuse my brother?" he said. "On Jenna's graduation day?" "I'm not trying to ruin anything," I said, voice trembling. He touched me. My dad leaned close enough that I could smell beer on his breath. "You're not going to do this," he said, low. "You're not going to tear this family apart because you're in a mood." In a mood. Like my boundaries were hormones. That night ended with my mom telling me to go to my room when we got home, like I was grounded. My dad told me I was dramatic. My aunt called me a liar. Uncle Ray sent me a text that said, "Hope you feel better soon," like I was sick. Not one person asked me for details. Not one person said, "Tell us what happened." They just circled around him like he was the fragile thing that needed protection. A week later, my dad told me I had two choices, drop it or find somewhere else to live. I was in community college. I worked part-time at a coffee shop. I didn't have savings. I remember standing in my childhood bedroom staring at the posters on the wall and realizing my family was willing to throw me out to keep pretending. So I left. I moved in with a friend's older sister for a while and slept on a futon that smelled like laundry detergent and cat. I cried in the shower so nobody would hear. I kept going to work, smiling at customers, making lattes while my chest felt like it was full of rocks. Over the years, I tried to reconnect a few times. Birthdays. Holidays. A text here and there. And every time, it was the same script. Someone would say, "So are we over this now, or can you be normal?" Like I was the one holding everyone hostage. They never said the words, "We were wrong. We didn't protect you. We should have believed you." Instead, they said, "You're holding a grudge." Which brings me back to that living room, my aunt demanding forgiveness like it was an overdue bill. "What do you want from us?" my dad finally snapped, voice tight. "You want us to go back in time?" "No," I said, and my hands were cold even though the room was warm. "I want you to acknowledge what you did. I want you to say you were wrong for calling me a liar. For making me leave. For protecting him." My mom's eyes were glossy. She looked tired. "We didn't protect him," she said weakly. "We just didn't know what to do." "You knew what to do," I said, and my voice shook with something I'd swallowed for years. "You could have asked questions. You could have said he can't be around me. You could have told me you believed me. You chose to act like I was the problem." Jenna sighed dramatically. "This is exhausting," she muttered. "Why can't you just forgive and move on?" I stared at her, feeling that old anger flare. "Because forgiveness isn't a magic eraser," I said. "It's something you choose when someone shows remorse and makes changes. None of you have done that. You just want the benefits of me being back without taking responsibility for why I left." My aunt leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "So what, you're perfect," she snapped. "You've never hurt anyone?" That question, twisting my pain into a moral test, was so familiar it almost made me laugh. Almost. I'm not perfect, I said. But if I hurt someone, I apologize. I don't demand they pretend it didn't happen so I can feel comfortable. My dad's face hardened. Ray isn't even around anymore, he said. He moved. He's not part of this. I felt my stomach drop, because it revealed the truth. They thought the problem was his presence, not their betrayal. This isn't about Ray being in the room, I said quietly. It's about you all choosing him over me. My mom made a small, broken sound. She stepped toward me, hands out like she wanted to grab me, like I was a runaway kid again. I miss you, she whispered. I miss my daughter. I wanted, so badly, to collapse into that. To let the longing do the work that accountability wouldn't. But then I remembered 19-year-old me on that futon, shaking, trying to understand how being honest made me disposable. I miss the idea of a mom who protects me, I said, and my voice cracked. But missing you doesn't change what you did. My dad stood up suddenly, the recliner squeaking behind him. So that's it? He demanded. You come here just to judge us? I looked at him and realized something sad and simple. He wanted a reunion without discomfort. He wanted me back in the family photo, back in the role, back in line. I didn't come here to judge you, I said, grabbing my keys from the coffee table with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. I came because Mom asked. I came because I thought maybe you'd finally say you were sorry. But you're not sorry. You're irritated that I remember. My aunt scoffed. So you're leaving again, she said. Typical. I paused at the door and turned back, heart pounding. It's not typical, I said. It's consistent. I leave when I'm not safe. No one followed me outside. No one begged me to stay. My mom stood in the doorway crying, and my dad stayed in the living room with his arms crossed, like he was waiting for me to come crawling back and apologize for making him uncomfortable. In my car, I sat with both hands on the steering wheel, breathing like I'd run a mile. My phone buzzed almost immediately, texts from Jenna, from my aunt, from my brother who hadn't even looked at me the whole time. You didn't have to be so harsh. Mom's devastated. You're tearing the family apart. Not one text said, I'm sorry. I drove home with my jaw clenched so tight it ached. When I got to my apartment, the bakery downstairs was closed, the street quiet. I walked up the stairs and felt this strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for what will probably never be. Relief that I didn't betray myself again. Here's what I've learned, in the ugliest, clearest way, some families confuse forgiveness with access. They think if they say we're family, it should unlock the door no matter what they did. They think time passing is the same as repair. They think you owe them your presence because you share blood. You don't. Forgiveness requires remorse. It requires change. It requires an acknowledgement that harm happened. If someone can't even say the words I was wrong, they're not asking for forgiveness. They're asking for you to stop having a memory. And I owe them nothing on that front. Not because I'm bitter. Because I'm finally loyal to myself. Thanks for watching. If you've ever had family demand forgiveness without offering remorse, share your story in the comments. I read them, and you never know who needs to hear that boundaries aren't cruelty, they're self-respect.